Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Talking Grit is brought to you by the Monroe County Reporters, Monroe's top news source for police, fire, and community events.
Post 3 and Depot Street. Truck boy at request.
Follow them on Facebook, and for $2.99 a month, you can become a subscriber and get the news you crave even faster.
Welcome, everybody, to Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. Today, we have another edition of Pride Preview with our upcoming matchup with the Seattle Seahawks, this time on Monday Night Football. Let's see if we can get a revenge on this team that has dominated us, frankly, in the recent history. So, to help us understand our opponent some more, we'll feature two interviews this week. First, we have Brandon Cain. He's the host of the Hawks Nest YouTube channel. Next will be Michael Sean Dugar, who covers the Seattle Seahawks for The Athletic and also co-hosts the Seattle Man-to-Man podcast. So we're going to get two different angles on that. It's a big Monday night matchup. We thought we'd hit you up with two guests, so it should go pretty good. Before we get in this matchup, Jacob, Lions are going to be showing out in something. What are they going to be wearing on this Monday night?
Yes, the black jerseys, Motor City Muscle. We kind of expected to hear it's going to be a huge night, the Monday night game against the Seahawks. Can't wait to see these black jerseys. It's going to be great. Perfect time to debut them.
Yep, it's going to be the all black ones too. So black pants with the black jerseys. I really like the blue pants, so I can't wait for that to come out. But the all black will be good. And Seattle announced, I think today, that they're doing all white jerseys. So it's going to be all black jerseys versus all white jerseys.
I'm digging it. I love it. We still got the blue helmet anyway, so
yeah, I can't wait.
It's not all
black. I can't
black.
wait to see these jerseys in action. I'm excited. And it's kind of a perfect night because one of our superstar players that used to wear those jerseys back in their first rendition, Calvin Johnson, he's going to join the Pride of the Lions. He'll be the 21st member of the Lions to get that honor. It's essentially like the Ring of Honor. His name will be up there, and it's about time for Calvin. I'm glad that he's going to be up there.
Absolutely. Yes, well-deserved. I mean, we had that falling out, and he just wasn't around the team for so long. It feels really good to have Calvin back on our side in the building and showing him the support that he's definitely earned.
3 first-team All-Pros, 6-time Pro Bowler, elected to the Hall of Fame in 2021, and still currently holds the all-time single-season receiving record with 1,964 yards. It only seems like only a matter of time, especially with 17 games, that's going to drop. But it still hasn't, and Calvin still holds it. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome. It was kind of scary at the end of last year. We thought Tyreek was going to take it because he had a pretty good lead, and then he got injured towards the end of the year. And, yeah, Calvin's still the leader of that one.
Kind of games. Otherwise, there's an asterisk.
Well, I mean, then O.J. Simpson will still have the 2,000 yard because I think he did it 2,000 rushing yards in 14 games. So everybody else has done it, 16 games. Still,
I wasn't alive when O.J. was a football player. That's not why I know him.
Yeah, you probably knew him for another reason.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk about Seattle Seahawks here. Let's get to introduction to them. As we get later and later in the season, we're going to talk less about their draft picks unless it's someone that really moves the needle. We're going to talk less about their free agents because now we could talk about our in-season stuff. So we could talk about stuff that they've done this season that's more relevant, and we're going to hit on that and just get you more prepared for the game. So why don't you just hit on maybe a couple of their draft picks, Jacob, and let's move quickly through the free agents, and then we'll move on to like the injury report and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not going to touch on too many of these draft picks. They did only have one first-round pick. It was the big defensive lineman Byron Murphy out of Texas. That was a huge get for them. Outside of him, they had a third, couple fourth. They had some late-round picks, some role players. Nobody necessarily that we really need to worry about. Their third-round pick was an offensive lineman, Christian Haynes. And then their fourth rounder, actually, we should know him because he is a tight end out of Michigan, A.J. Barner. So not too big on the draft picks for the Seahawks. Not that they really needed it as much, But some more notable free agent or off-season moves, they released Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, both their safeties. They also moved on from Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks. They did re-sign their tight end Noah Fant, and then the huge defensive lineman Leonard Williams. That was big for them. And they also acquired Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker. Another big, worth mentioning is that Pete Carroll is no longer the coach of the Seahawks. For the first time since 2010, they're going to have a new coach behind the sideline, somebody else we're familiar with, and that's Mike McDonald. And he, former defensive coordinator for the University of Michigan, defensive-minded coach, a young coach. So, fully revamped Seahawks team.
Yep, still going to be hard playing. It's going to be weird not seeing Pete Carroll roaming the sidelines. I can't imagine that Mike McDonald's going to be as animated as Pete Carroll was when he would come down that side.
He never was when he was defensive coordinator, so I don't see it happening.
I don't see it happening either, but yeah, Pete Carroll was just either had a huge smile on his face or he's throwing his headset to the ground in disgust of something that happened. So
yeah.
All right, Jacob, why don't you let us know the impact players? I know you got some stats here that we should be looking out for on the Seattle Seahawks football team.
Yeah, here we go. The impact players for the Seahawks thus far. The season is still young. We have quarterback Gino Smith. Pro Football Focus ranks him as the 6th quarterback right now in the league. Their left tackle, Charles Cross, is actually rated number 1 offensive tackle in Pro Football Focus. You have both safeties on the Seahawks team. The free safety, Julian Love, is actually the number 1 ranked safety. And then the strong safety, Rayshon Jenkins, is ranked number 10. Julian Love was also number 95 on the NFL Top 100 this year. So he's somebody that, we're already aware of. Rayshon coming along nicely. Cornerback Tariq Woolen, number 5 cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. He was rated number 1 on the NFL Top 100. And then defensive lineman Leonard Williams, who's injured. We don't know if he's playing yet, but he's rated number 5 in Pro Football Focus for the defensive line. So those are the impact players as far as what their Pro Football Focus rankings and everything are. We do still have to mention DK Metcalf as an impact player. He's ranked 37th so far in Pro Football Focus. Take that for whatever you will, but he is ranked 6th in receiving yards this year. And he was number 84 on the NFL Top 100. We already know about DK. He's definitely an impact player in this game.
Yep. I think we're going to have something special to come out this weekend, maybe based on our interviews about DK Metcalf. So you have that to look forward to. We're recording this Wednesday night. Usually the first injury report has come out on Wednesday. Not going to happen today. Everything's delayed today because of Monday Night Football. However, with the Lions, we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to look like. This week, they've added Derek Barnes and Marcus Davenport to the IR. Marcus Davenport's probably done for the year with a torn tricep. Derek Barnes seems like he's going to be out for a bit, but sounds like he might be designated for a return at some point. We're also going to have to deal with Sam Laporta. Lee McNeil has a shoulder issue. Brian Branch had a concussion. Alex Anzalone, we still don't know. He flew out there, was questionable, ended up not playing. Hopefully he's going to be back. And then Frank Ragnow. We found out late Monday night that he had partially torn pec. 97-1 ticket. Had an interview with Dan Campbell yesterday and said Frank's petitioning to play in the game. We'll see. With the bye week the following week, I could really see them shutting Frank down to just give him two weeks to rest up and then reassess after the break. But like I said, we don't have a practice report, so we really don't know how that's going to go. With Seattle, do you want to go through any of that, Jacob? With Seattle, I think we have.
I'll run down just kind of what we know based on what happened last week and what's expected. The biggest name on here is going to be their running back, Kenneth Walker. He only played week 1. He's been out since then. They still list him as questionable up until the game last week, and then he didn't end up playing. Linebacker Jerome Baker, also questionable. Their other linebacker, Uchenna Nwosu, also going to be questionable. And then they've got the big defensive linemen, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. Not really much information on them, but they may not play, and that would be huge losses for them, as well as their offensive tackle, Abraham Lucas, which seems to be a trend that every week, whoever we play, whoever's lining up across Aiden Hutchinson seems to be injured that week and not playing.
They're like, taking this week off. Let the backup deal with this.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be running.
Can't go, coach.
This is too much. As far as these injuries, we do have the benefit of an extra day. So, like for Brian Branch, they may prove vital because of the concussion. Having an extra day may really prove beneficial to get him on the field. We'll see with the other guys. Like I said, we don't know about too much about their practice. We'll learn about that over the next coming days, leading all the way up until Monday night, and we'll see how they go. Regardless, a lot of these injuries happened Sunday, and our defense still played really well. Derek Barnes only played 11 snaps. Liam McNeil only played 15. We still played really solid football, solid defensive football in that game. So the Lions will make do, next man up, and they'll take care of business. So as far as Seattle, they're coming in 3-0. Jacob, do you want to go through who they've beaten in these 3 weeks?
Right. They are 3-0. I will not say that they have had very many impressive games or impressive opponents necessarily. Week 1, they beat the Denver Broncos, rookie Bo Nix debut. They beat them 26-20. Week 2, they played the New England Patriots in New England. That game went into overtime, and they won 23-20. That was not against a rookie quarterback. That was against Brissett. And then week 3 last week, they end up beating the Miami Dolphins 24-3, and that was without Tua. The Dolphins started Skylar Thompson, and they ended up going with Tim Boyle to finish the game. Anytime you have to go to Tim Boyle when you're in week 3 is not a good look. So Miami's scrambling. They need to do something now. But the Seahawks, whoever's across from you, that's who you have to beat, and they're beating them, and they did what was expected of them, and they looked good doing it.
The Lions are going to be the first big test for Seattle. Also being on Monday night. They've had our number, like we mentioned in the intro, but we're ready to have a good showing here. Before we get on to our interviews, let's just get you ready for a little bit for this contest and get you ready for these interviews. And you could just kind of see where Seattle ranks overall right now in the NFL. Again, we're 3 games in. We've talked about their opponents. Things are very variable based on who you're playing and stuff like that. But nonetheless, you let you know where these teams stand. So offensively, Seattle's ranked 8th in yards per game. They're 3rd in the NFL in passing yards per game, whereas they're 23rd in the NFL in rushing yards per game. Now, like I said, Kenneth Walker's been hurt, so that probably affects that somewhat. Seattle's been wanting to be a rushing team. Now, we don't know with Mike McDonald what he's going to prioritize. Come from Michigan, being a defensive coach, I'm thinking running the ball he's going to want to be able to do that very well. So when Kenneth Walker gets back, we'll see how they do. As far as their defensive rankings, they are, again, highly rated in defense, but let's reiterate, they played a rookie quarterback week number 1. New England Patriots, their offensive line is probably one of the worst, if not the worst in the NFL. And they played a 2-less Miami Dolphins team. So they've had some probably weaker offensive teams to play against. So not that it accounts for everything, but that's probably why they're ranked so high right now. They're 1st in passing yards per game, 15th in the run. They are giving the quarterbacks time to throw. They're 20th in time to throw, so they're allowing the quarterback a little bit of time back there, which it's good for Jared Goff. They're 9th in sacks. They don't blitz a lot. They're 26th in blitz rate. So as of right now, they're not blitzing. Now, that could be also who they're playing. Again, it's early, so they might not have had to blitz just because of who they're playing, and maybe with the Lions they'll have a different plan. But as of right now, they're not blitzing a lot, and they are 4th in yak, so they are not allowing receivers, running backs to get a lot of yards after catch, which they have a really good secondary, so that doesn't surprise me.
Absolutely. Secondary is one of the top in the league. They had to replace Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, and their safeties back there right now are doing just as well. Obviously, it's early, but they're doing just as well, if not better, than what the other two showed out.
So, all right. Now that we got you primed and ready what this Seattle team is about, we are going to get into our interviews. So we will talk with you guys and give us our keys to the game and stats to look out for and our grip picks and everything on the other side of these interviews. I hope you enjoy. I want to welcome everybody here. We have Brandon Cain. He's host of the Hawks Nest. He is knower of all Seahawk knowledge, so we've asked him to be on this podcast to inform you, Detroit Lions fans, what we're up against this week. So First of all, Brandon, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Tell us about the Hawks Nest, how long you've been doing it.
Well, thank you very much for that kind opening. My name is Brandon Cain. I'm on the Hawks Nest on YouTube. I've been doing this for 5 years over on that side of it, covering my Seahawks team. I've been a fan since very early in the 80s to date myself, as yes, I am that old. But love my team, love covering it with as much depth as I can, while at the same time learning along with everybody else on this great sport of football, because the thing I really appreciate about it, is anything else, is that there are so many layers in enjoying it. You can just like it as a fan at the surface level and just watching athletes be at their best, but then you can start to dive into other things, schematics, the X's and O's, the game within the game that's going on back and forth, how these teams prospect and look at those guys, and putting that together with that plan and how interesting that is. First, I think sometimes other sports where it's like hit the ball or not, put the ball in the basket or not. I mean, there's some stuff they're running, but I think football's on a much more different level of complexity. I love that about it. And I love my team, man.
Oh, we love our team too. And let's talk about that. Your team has had our team's number the last few years. We're not salty about it at all, if you can tell. What? Why is it? Why have you had our number? I mean, can you pinpoint that? Because I'd like to know, because I'm going to call Dan Campbell after this and let him know. But, why is it? Why have you guys had our numbers recently?
Well, I think the good news is that it's two different reasons the prior 2 years, I think, overall. And I think that your team has taken steps to deal with those said reasons. So that should at least provide some encouragement to Lions fans. A couple of years ago was our scoregami game, 48-45. I don't know that you can shake a lot at the offense, your Lions offense, and say there's something that left you wanting there. You put 45 on the board, you go, good job, fellas, not you today. Now, with the Lions defense that day, we kind of was able to get them every which way but loose. But I think specifically really the death shot, so to speak, came by the run game, and an audible in that game to your heavy blitz. And you guys struggled, I think, stopping the run overall that day. Both of our backs had pretty good success. So I think when I look at what you've done since then, you've reinforced your rush defense. They're mightily improved this year. I know there's some injuries you guys are dealing with, but I think that was a large part of it to a degree. Now, the pass defense was also bad. That carried over to last year in our 37-31 game, where again, I think we were able to throw the ball all over you. You just didn't have the guys on the outside to hold up. Again, though, you went into this offseason, traded for Carlton Davis, went out there, drafted Branch out on the, not Branch, but Terry and Arnold out on the outside. And that's after you got Branch in the second round the prior year. So you've taken steps to try to get this improved. I mean, that's what I always ask about my team, is that, look, you're going to get stuff right, you're going to get stuff wrong. But if you get stuff wrong, do you continue to make the same mistake, or do you actually try to improve upon it and make it be something that you can fix? And so I don't know if the pass defense is quite fixed for the Lions yet, but I do think the run defense is better. And I think that they have continually improved this Lions team over time throughout that point. So we did get the number. They were kind of two wild games. But at the end of the day, I don't know, even in the second game, you can really point your offense. We got you at the end with a corner blitz. We never blitz. So that team didn't blitz. So if they blitzed you and they hit you with the corner blitz, it was going to surprise you. Goff off guard. He got sacked. Next play, you come back. You show him a stack front. Goff's like, oh, my God, they're going to blitz again because it was successful in the last play. Then you throw the pick six to Trey Brown, and the whole scope of the game gets kind of flipped around at that point. So that was a little more fluky-ish, I would say. I mean, we played the game well. We beat you guys. I'm not saying that we didn't take it to you, but like at the end of the day, it wasn't something that we're taking to the woodshed every time we come into Detroit. Like, it's our house. No, we've escaped.
Yeah. Thank you for being kind, but your offense definitely took us to the woodshed and took us out back, but. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it just seems like one team just, comes out on top. On last year's game, you guys got an overtime right away, and it was no question. You guys just marched down the field and took us. And it was quite different than the second half of the fourth quarter. The Lions defense had kind of played pretty well and got Gino and sacked him down by the goal line, and we just couldn't finish at the end of the game and went to overtime, and Gino took over. So you have a new coach, Mike McDonald. We're familiar with him because he came from Michigan. What's different under Mike McDonald? I know it's early, so you may not be able to see so much, but as far as between him and Pete Carroll, are you noticing anything, or is it just kind of you're trying to fill it out yet?
No, I think that there's been some very key differences. And I think that this moving on from Carroll didn't happen because he was suddenly a bad coach or that the game had completely passed him by. It's just that those things that had passed him by in the game, he hadn't really gone back to deal with, and they had just kind of ever growed, worsened. It's almost like a gangrene growing on the body a little bit. And so it became very kind of clear over time to where this is not getting dealt with. This needs to be, these things right here need to be directly developed with. So for instance, we have Brady Anderson from the Seahawks ESPN reporter today has an article coming out about accountability and the difference in accountability with this new staff at McDonald when he walked in the door versus maybe a little bit of the laissez-faire attitude that was there prior. And I don't want to seem like I'm bashing on Carroll because he's a great coach, legendary coach, best coach in Seahawks history, brought us our first title. But at the same point in time, by the end, it was kind of what it was with that, where when you are a player's coach, you're always towing that line between the players taking that rope and keep pulling on the rope. First, you're giving them the rope. They recognize the responsibility you're giving them, and then they reward you for that with the work ethic and what they do with it. And early on, players did the latter on that, especially those LLB teams. Later on, I think they just started to kind of keep taking rope. So accountability right off the gate is the thing that stands out. The secondary part, though, is the schematics, X's and O's. And that when you play this game, Carroll has a bit of a thinking of it. We'll line up and we'll do what we're going to do. And especially defensively speaking, we were 32nd in the NFL last year, and consistently throughout Carroll's time of whatever coverage we show you on the back end is the coverage you're going to get post-snap. Meaning that if I'm a quarterback trying to read things prior to the snap, it's going to look very clearly to me what you're going to do post-snap. And so quarterbacks like a Jared Goff are going to like that a lot. You make it clear for him he can be deadly. You can let me hit my back foot and trust my read and know where I can go. I'm going to be good with that. This carried over to offense too. Lack of motion, lack of targeting in the middle of the field, things that you were league worst at along with everything else. But defensively with McDonald, this is, of course, what you get right on your ear with him from the jump, which is a guy that is never going to give you what he shows you. A lot of times it's the cover two shell on the back end, but those coverages will always change post-snap, and he will run every kind of coverage in the book, including man. And so that means that whatever a quarterback is thinking he's seeing coming to the snap is not what he will be seeing post-snap. So you're forcing quarterbacks to process post-snap, which is a very keynote difference and part of the reason why you're seeing the Hawks defense so dominant out the gate. The talent was there here, but the talent was being held back by the schematics.
So the Seahawks are creating a lot of pressure on the quarterback. How are they designing that pressure differently under McDonald?
Another great question, another good spot that has been changed a little bit. Under the Carroll defense, you were not going to run much blitzes. You were not going to run a lot of simulated pressures. It was a front four, needed to go and get home. It was kind of on their back to do so. And they didn't run a lot of games, but it got, again, easy for offenses to kind of predict what was coming. And if you don't have four real dogs up front to get home, you're relying on more one or two guys. Offenses can skew their protections to double team the dogs on that defense and then single up the other guys and not worry about it. And they'll have plenty of time in the pocket to pick you apart, especially for a defense that wants to fall deep on the old side of things and leave stuff open underneath. The new defense now runs these simulated pressures, which is what McDonald has done is he's taken the old Buddy Ryan 46 defense from the Bears in the 85 and how it's updated through time. It's always been a defense that's built on stacking boxes and man-to-man on the outside. What he's done with his iteration is, I like those stacked boxes. Let's not bring the house as much. Less casino blitzes. Less of the man-on-man on the outside. Because what happens when one of these corners gets injured? We got to run backups. They got to still then run the man versus man concepts versus zone. No, we got to build in the zone stuff into the defense too. And what these stack fronts do is that they freak the hell out of offensive lines and protections. Because when you bring extra guys up around the line of scrimmage, there's a natural inclination by offenses to change the protections. So if I have a running back here on the side of my quarterback with Goff, and Boye Mafe is a real dangerous edge rusher, naturally on our play, we're going to get that chip to Mafe. But okay, I get double A gap mug pressure, two linebackers coming up to stand up in the A gap. Now you'll watch protections change where that running back will be funneled inside now in front of the quarterback, but just to his side, so that the center can pick up one of the linebackers and he can pick up the other. This now allots Boye Mafe a one-on-one where he might have had to have dealt with the chip prior. Now, post-snap, you still only bring four. You don't know which four are coming, but you still tend to only still bring four. Who knows which? Again, you got to process post-snap which here, offensive line-wise. But Mafe gets his one-on-one. Your other edge rushers get their one-on-ones from this because the protections don't suddenly go that running back doesn't suddenly go, oh, the linebacker isn't coming and sprint out. He doesn't have enough time to do that, to get out to that edge. So it really messes up protections in a major way. And it is a thing where it's beautiful because you're essentially getting the benefits of kind of blitzing without blitzing. You're still able to drop all those guys back in coverage and close down those passing windows. And so it's this is why this defense is working so well right now, is it's getting a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, even though that Mike McDonald's only 37 years old, he's been in the game for a long time. He's defensive minded under both the Harbaugh brothers. You know, really good to see him get an opportunity to be a head coach. And, obviously it's early on. The defense really, really looks legit.
I think it's coming together, and I think it's still going to have its days with a new coach coming in. To your point, it's the youngest coach in the NFL. You're expecting, look, it's gone well so far. We've had an easier schedule. That's helped us out.
Right.
But there's going to be some ups and downs on this as we go through the season, but you feel really good about the coach you're getting. The players, the way that they talk about this guy to a man is, man, this guy's smart, and he understands how to get it across. And it's that thing where you usually get the smart guys that seem to be a little bit of the introverts that, yes, they're brilliant, but they don't really know how to communicate it, or they're not really people persons to get it across. He seems to have a bit of both of that. You get a feel for that even this article today that you read from ESPN on this with a reporter talking about some of this stuff, and that he has a way to be smart, but get that also across to the players to communicate and get them to pick it up quickly. And that's part of what makes him a great defensive mind, not a great defensive scheme, but a great defensive mind. And I think that there is a difference between the two.
Brandon, I love listening to you talk. You your stuff. This is like right off the back of your hand. This is awesome. I want to talk to you. During our intro part that you weren't a part of, we talked about you have new safeties back there. That's kind of tough because when you get new safeties back there, especially a communication standpoint, you lost Jamal and Quandre. How is that going? And is the pressure up front hiding some of that problems that may be back there, or is it just really solid all the way around in your secondary?
Well, Julian was here last year, and he really played well for us. I think he had 4 or 5 interceptions for us last year, as Jamal Adams was really injured most of the year and didn't hardly play at all. So it was really him back there really manning things. Jenkins has been a great addition. I think they're 2 of the top 10 rated safeties by PFF right now on the season. They are all around good players in that they can cover and they can tackle. They're not going to be game changers necessarily, but upper level players for the position. Again, giving you the well-rounded, and this is part of what McDonald wants in his scheme now, is less of a guy that has got the narrow pathway in his skills and what he does, and more of the guy who has a toolkit. He can do it all, because you're going to be asked to kind of do it all in this scheme. You might start out as a single high safety and end up as a slot corner. You might start as an outside corner and end up as a single high safety. So you've got to be able to do everything. And the thing these 2 safeties bring to the table, and what you need to have in this defense, is with the split safety look, the ability to have your free safety do strong safety stuff and the strong safety to do the free safety stuff. Whereas before, 20 years ago, right, free safeties 14, 15 yards off the ball. Strong safety is going to be about 9 to 8, depending on if you're playing the run or not. Now they're even if you watch them on that alignment with that split safety look. And so they both have to have that skill set to do both. And these guys do. And that's part of the reason the defense is playing so well. So I would offer it's really as much as the pressures are very impressive, and they are very impressive, I think you could make the argument here, the strength of this defense right now is actually in the secondary, especially when you factor in the corners.
Yes, you have very good corners over there.
We'll stick with the defense before we cross over here. I guess the question, how do you think the Seahawks are going to attack the Lions offense?
It's a good question. I think that the running game has had some tough sledding for us. And we do have a new offensive coordinator here, who's not just new offensive coordinator, of course, but from college. You don't often see OCs from college go to the NFL level and make that transition. And it's been okay. It's not been bad. It is a little bit more finding footing versus McDonald, who you might have thought you were going to see a little bit more of that, who you haven't really seen of that. He's been just smooth sailing. The boat goes right in the water and you're off. This has been a little bit more of, you feel your OC trying to kind of feel what works, what doesn't. I don't have the wide hash marks from college. How can I do? The linemen can't take 3 steps downfield on the screen game. They can take 1 step. I think there's some adjustment period going on here where he's quite literally still game to game here, feeling out offensively what he can and can't do. You have a lot of talent. And I think when you come down the Lions game the last 2 years, and I buried the lead on that. I think when it really breaks down to why we beat you guys the last 2 years, all things in kind of taken into account, it's Gino Smith. Gino Smith played outstanding football the last 2 years. He's played your guys' team. The Scorigami game, we couldn't have punted once in that game. 1 punt, and we lose that game. 1 punt. And he's a guy that doesn't get a lot of, I know, credit nationally. And I think from some people, they just get stuck with the New York situation just in their head from 10 years ago. But this guy is a really good quarterback, and a guy that between him and the skill positions of players on the outside, even though you're around 29th, 30th in pass protection, even though you don't have a consistent running game, You've still been really good offensively because you can be explosive. And Gino right now is commanding the position. People will laugh at it, but he's this year, and in my opinion, he's played top 10 to top 5 level right now. And that's, you've got to factor in with him. People don't like to do this math, but with a quarterback's play, it's oftentimes supporting cast. Last year, a defense was so bad it was living on the football field an extra literal game and a half in collective extra snaps on the season. What does that do to your offense? Moves a game and a half off the books from them too, right? It's a push-pull game on that. There aren't extra minutes created. You got an offense last year that would target the field 30-second rate. Talk about Carroll and some of his philosophy. And why I like, for instance, you're wondering in OT why it clicked in. I'm going to give you a little indicator on this one because he didn't want to target the middle of the field because risk-adverse nature, defensive-minded coaches that are head coaches, because he feels there's more turnovers to be had there than going to the outside, to go outside of the hash marks. So you're the 32nd team in the NFL targeting the middle of the field, but what happens when you get to overtime? Well, then coach looks down at his OC and he goes, dial it up. So if you go to your guys' game in that overtime, if you go to an Eagles game that we played in overtime last year, you'd see the same things at that time, where it would then catch defenses off guard because they're thinking, man, they're only staying on the outsides. They're not going to attack the middle throws. And now suddenly the throws are getting peppered inside. But Gino Smith's played outstanding football. It's going to have to be on his arm if we beat you. You guys, I know, are shorthanded. It's a little dodgy your injury situation right now because guys are in that kind of sub-questionable state where you guys might come out there and be, hey, it's actually kind of fine. Or you guys might come out there and it's like, we're holding on a little bit out here right now. You know, guys are getting through, but they're not at their best. So it's hard to predict from that standpoint. But I just keep coming back to so far this year, the run game's been really inconsistent. The pass protection's been god awful. So it's really going to come down to Gino and his decision making. And when I tell you, it's like control. He's going to have the 20 seconds on the play clock. They're going to give him the play and allow him to have the control to set things up. He's going to run up tempo. He's going to be back there running it like you. And again, a guy does get a lot of credit for doing this, but part of why I'm such a guy that has his back in a big way, because there's few quarterbacks that can run the show in this manner, dealing with at times what he's having to deal with to make it go.
Yep. I always feel when you have a quarterback like Gino Smith, I always feel like that with Jared Goff, that people that don't watch him every day don't get to see what value they add to the team. They only see what's on the highlight shows or whatever like that. When you have a guy like Jared Goff, Gino Smith, they're not necessarily going to be on those highlight shows, but they're moving the ball and doing the things that winning teams do.
I feel the very same way, and it's been one of the great debates in my chat, and it's been a debate I've been on with Pro Gino since day one when he took over 2 years ago for Russ, for what the skill set he was bringing, because he could do things at that time. For instance, Russ couldn't anymore, like play on script, play on time, be more cognizant of the blitz when it's coming, have an answer for it. There was just some things he had done to really grow his game. I call it the lonely work a quarterback does, where everybody expects these quarterbacks to come in and shoot to the moon or not, and then they fail or not, and they say, okay, move on to the next. But it is a position that you can master over time. And you get a guy 10 years in who's been behind guys like Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson. Maybe he's had some time to learn a thing or two about a thing or two. And the natural talent certainly is there with him. And with Goff, I agree it is as well. This guy's gotten to a Super Bowl. This guy was a bounced ball off a defensive back's face mask for a Brandon Ayuk catch away from getting to a Super Bowl a second time. And that's where I come back to. Everyone thinks about the superhero quarterback that's going to go fly on high and carry everybody off. And I call it the Brady Mahomes effect, where I think we've had two GOATs come down the line recently, and it's messed up people's head at looking at the position. And rather than now being still thinking about the supporting cast and building a really great team, it becomes just about that quarterback of the future. Get the guy that's the guy. Is he the guy? They start using words like that don't mean anything, but it's these like all-encompassing words to try to say, you need that guy to do it. It's like there's few of those guys walking the planet and you can do it another way. And I agree. I think your Lions can win a Super Bowl with Goff because they've set the team to do so with him. If you ask Goff to drop back like 53 times like you did a couple weeks ago, not his game, not what you should be doing with him. If you run a balanced attack, you give him pass protection up front, and you don't have your defense as leaky as it's been a little bit at times over the past couple of other years, he can go get you a Super Bowl. I think he can. And again, the Patriots came out with that Super Bowl and the Rams, man, that the game plan that they came out with them with the 6-man fronts in that game, and that was going to throw off any kind of quarterback for what that Rams team had been just breezing through on that season versus hitting that game. But he's a good quarterback. I agree. I'm not meaning to go on a tangent here, but I think Jared Goff is a high quality quarterback. I think he does need the supporting cast around him to excel in that way, because even compared to like a guy like Gino, there's going to be a lack of mobility lack of ability to create. And like, I don't think Goff's running a 45-yard run in the open field like we saw from Gino this year, where he's juking a guy in the open field. I don't think Goff's got that in his bag. But good quarterback, and he can absolutely get you the trophy as long as these things are in the right place, and they are. The Lions
You
have
are
set the
selling
stage right.
Goff short because he ran for a first down at the last game. He got a whole 7 yards and iced that game. So you're selling him short. I agree with everything that
There
you
we
said,
go.
Brandon, but
There we go.
don't.
Hey.
No, he's not juking anybody in the open field, but it's like the Peyton Manning rush in the end zone, like bootleg, because no one expected Peyton Manning to ever do that. Same thing with Jared Goff.
It's that when he does go to,
Exactly.
it's wide open though. So you just got to keep that in your bag to bring out every once in a while. Keep him honest.
So kind of, you talked about Jared Goff having weapons around, more talent on this team. Speaking into that, what concerns you about this Lions team when you see this game coming up? What's the thing that you point to?
I think we're going to give your passing attack a little bit of problems because so much of, I think, the Lions passing attack is built on option routes. Not all of it, I'm not saying, but there's a heavy amount of that baked within in what they do, especially with the Amon St. Brown stuff, which is working off leverage. And with McDonald's changing of coverages post-snap and how wildly he'll flow it. So I think part of a little bit of what gave Goff problems last year coming into Baltimore in that game. I know you guys came into that with some injuries, and there's some other things at play as to why you lost that game a little bit, but I think that does inherently give it issues versus, let's say, our prior defense. We were going to run cover 3. Goff walks up the line of scrimmage. He sees off coverage on the outside with the corners. He's going, okay, see cover 3 indicators here. My in-cutting route off of the leverage will work here. That corner will still be on top on the receiver. So the in-cutting route's likely to work if we're reading this on the fly on kind of an option route basis. So I'm not as super concerned with the passing attack. I think they're going to be very careful with us too, with our pass rush, and especially here without Ragnow. But I do think the rushing attack for the Lions is very close to being called deadly. I think you guys have very close to probably the best two-headed rushing attack in football. And they are a pure thunder and lightning scenario that so many teams aspire for. And we're trying to aspire for that same thing with our two backs. But you guys have it on point right now and rolling, as we haven't quite gotten both of our guys rolling healthy and to make it work. But you really saw the benefits in that Arizona game. You come back off the 53 attempts with Goff the prior week. You come back in this, go, okay, no, we're going to mess around anymore with this. We can take it to this Arizona front four. They can't. If we just run downhill and 2-1 our run to pass here, we're going to win this football game. And you did, and you were able to lean on that. And it was impressive to watch you guys physically take it to it. It was kind of funny. I do an NFC West roundtable show, so I had to do the preview. I had to look at the game of the Rams and the 49ers a little bit deeper, and then right after that, I go to your guys' game with the Cardinals, and it was like going from the Matrix movie fight where it's like super fast punches to watching like a barroom back alley brawl between two guys that are drunk. They're just throwing haymakers at each other because the game was so physical. And I thought Arizona rose as much as they could to the occasion on it. More talented team, but I thought that they did a good job of giving you their best punch too in that game, where it was a wild difference to watch between the two games. And that's something your Lions team does bring, is that physicality. So when I go to that running game and that physicality you bring, and we've had a little bit of an issue at stopping the run just to a degree this year, starting off, that's the place I think that you guys can make some hay, especially if you stay committed to it like you did this past week. If you cannot take the bait a little bit and get drawn back in another way, then you should be fine.
All right, Brandon, you go and have a good show tonight. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, guys.
Alrighty.
It was great chopping
All
up with you guys.
All right, have a good night.
For sure.
I want to welcome Mike Dugar here. He's a reporter for The Athletics, reports on the Seahawks, a team that the Lions are going to be facing this week. So, Mike, tell us how long that you've been working with The Athletic and how long have you been reporting for the Seahawks?
Joined The Athletic in 2018, kind of the early years when it was still a startup. I've been doing the Seahawks since 2017. So this is year, whatever that amounts to. Started traveling in 2018. That's been fun. I think I've been to Detroit like 3-4 times already. One of my favorite road trip cities. I love it. So can't wait to get back out there for prime time.
So, all right, let's get in on this. So I want to start out with Devin Witherspoon. He was nearly a Lion. What kind of player did the Lions miss out on with you guys taking him right before our pick?
Yeah, I think he's just a do-it-all player that you need in today's game. The nickel spot is so valuable because you're in the middle of the action. I mean, nickel's essentially the new base now. You're so involved in the run fits. It's critical with all these teams playing too high now, too high safeties. your nickel's got to be, he's got to cover like a corner and hit like a linebacker. He's got to have a really unique set of skills, kind of Liam Neeson-esque in that regard. And he has that. For what it's worth, I think Branch has that too. Like, there were two guys that I wanted to mock them to the Seahawks, but it just felt weird to take a corner that high that year. But I was just like, both of these guys can play, and they can play in the middle. And Spoon was a little bit more of a projection because he didn't play in the middle of Illinois defense. They just played man a ton. So he ended up getting a lot of slot snaps, but he wasn't a true nickel, whereas Branch was in Bama's defense. But I think they're similar. DK got asked if they're similar. He said no, and then said Spoon's one of the best DBs he's ever seen. So I will defer to him. He knows more ball than I do. But I saw, like, in terms of Seahawks need them being pretty similar. Branch, I guess, maybe falls more into like the big nickel, like a third safety version of it, whereas Spoon is more like traditional slot. But in effect, you're getting the same thing. You're getting run support, some coverage stuff in the flats, carrying some verticals and stuff. So I don't know much about Brian's personality, but I do know Spoon's a dog. He's very smart. He's very physical. He's a trash talker. He can call out routes before they happen. He's a great blitzer. He really has to do it all guy. Pete Carroll compared him to Troy Polamalu on draft night. And not so much his play style, but just instincts. Troy knew what was coming. So it looked like he was moving faster than everyone else. Spoon's the same way. He knows what's coming. Last year against Detroit, I think was like some of his first action. So he didn't know what was coming in. He got bit on a flea flicker for a touchdown, I think. But you just don't see stuff like that happening since then. His knowledge of ball, his IQ is through the roof. You can hear him in training camp just being like, hey, they're about to run a corner route, so watch out for the corner route. Then the corner route comes. So he's just smart, knows that stuff. DK mentioned that today as well. He said he was calling out DK's routes. He's like, we do that in year 2. He's an impressive guy. He would have been great playing for Dan Campbell, but the Seahawks are very happy that John Snyder and his guys snatched him up before the Lions could. Because, they were definitely going to take him if he was there.
I agree with you. That was going to be the plan. I was at Ford Field when that pick went down, and I was waiting for it to be announced. The guy in front of me had his phone out, and he's like, you're never going to believe this happened. But because I just thought we were getting Spoon. I just thought it was going to happen, and just didn't work out that way. But I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs and Laporta. That's all right. Consolation prize, we'll take it.
I mean, it's a really good class, as you guys know. That rookie class is nails. Not like Lions made it further than the Seahawks did last year, right? So, I mean, Lions are doing okay.
For sure.
Hey, the Seahawks, you hit on back-to-back cornerback picks, though. The year before that was Tariq Woolen, right?
Yeah. Back-to-back Pro Bowlers as rookies.
Heck of a way to build the secondary back-to-back.
At the expense of, though, then they had to, they just compensated at the expense of the front, though. Then they had to go trade for Leonard Williams and pay him and go draft Byron Murphy II out of Texas, their first pick last year. And they paid Draymond Jones in the offseason going into 2022, I think it was, or 23, can't remember. So, I mean, yep, they built the secondary on the cheap, but then they had to go pay for the D-line, whereas you guys can get like Marcus and McNeil and Hutch and have that, Levi, and have that D-line looking a lot better, and then have to go kind of use the other assets on the back end. I mean, there's no wrong way to do it. Detroit and Seattle just gone about having a better defense than they've had in the matchups against each other. They've both tried to do that. They just have gone about it different ways. Because, I mean, both D coordinators were just looking awful in the first 2 matchups between these guys. They want the third one to be way better.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Switching it up here. So we're going to talk about Gino Smith. So in your opinion, do you think that he is a franchise NFL quarterback? And then overall, how do you think Seahawks fans think of Gino? How do they feel about him?
I feel like a lot of them are torn on the answer to that question, part because of age. I think Gino turns 34 next month. It's kind of hard to build around that. I think he is, just because, for instance, my colleague Mike Sando does his quarterback tiers column every year, and he solicits opinions from 50 NFL execs and coaches and stuff like that, and they rank them and they tier them. And the definition of the tiers is always put into the column, which I love. You got to have a criteria if you're going to make rankings. Gino was in tier 3. And that, I don't have the full definition in front of me, but that tier was defined loosely as Guys who can win you games, but they need a run support. They need a good defense backing them. And then tier 2 is like guys who can handle pure drop back situations, don't necessarily need the ground game. You can kind of win because of them and what they can do. And then tier 1 is just basically Mahomes. That's the definition. Is he Mahomes? Yes, then he's tier 1. If he's not Mahomes, then he's like top of tier 2. And Gino just doesn't make sense as a tier 3 guy to me. The Seahawks haven't had a run game really the last couple of years, haven't had a defense, and Gino's been fine. He is that guy you can win a game because of with his arm. And it doesn't have to be against a bad team. He can do it against a good team, at the very least a good defense. At least you've seen to do that. He hasn't played super well in primetime, which I think is part of why some people outside of Seattle may be torn on him. It's just the nature of the biz. There'd be like 12 games on at 1 o'clock Eastern or whatever. As the Seahawks are playing, how many people are watching versus Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night. So I think he can kind of help his national reputation, but just me in particular, I just think he's got what you need as a quarterback. He can run quick game stuff. There's not like a part of the field where he obviously struggles. And there are even some like guys people would take over him that's super apparent. Like even Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts just loves throwing outside the numbers, deep shot, loves it. He's great at it too. He's got AJ Brown. They kill it. Tua just spams the middle of the field. Right? It's his thing. Lamar Jackson, same thing, middle of the field. Outside the numbers, Lamar's not as high. There's these quarterbacks who have these obvious drawbacks. For Gino doesn't really have that. It kind of reminds me of Matt Stafford, where it's like run quick game, under center play action, shotgun play action. You want me to throw an opposite hash, throw outside the numbers, an out route, got it. Deep shot above 2 high safeties, run that post to Tyler Lockett, nails, single coverage on the outside, go ball to DK, drops it in the bucket. Like he can make all of the throws. And he's willing to stand in there because he's tall and got a big arm. He's willing to stand in there and take shots and throw stuff over the middle. He had a 71-yard touchdown to DK against the Dolphins. He didn't even hitch up. He takes no steps forward, just all arm, just like 50 yards. DK has to slow up a little bit, but I mean, it's on the money enough with no hitch. His center getting walked backwards. Like those are the type of guys I feel like if you build it around them, they can make it happen. And then he's not totally a statue either. Like what I'm describing is Stafford as well, but then Stafford, once his O-line goes to hell, so does he. And he's not as mobile. Gino can move too if he needs to. He doesn't like running, but he can do it. So yeah, I'm not saying he's like Mahomes or anything, but there are quarterbacks who have gotten further in the playoffs than Gino, who I don't think are as good as Gino. It's just been built better around him. So I feel like he's one of those guys, you just build it better around him. And yeah, I think he can get you as far as you want to go. I don't think there's not a scenario where I would go into an NFC game in the playoffs and think, wow, the other quarterback's 100% guaranteed to outplay Gino in this playoff game. There's just not one. I feel like maybe Brock because of how good he's been in the playoffs, but I mean, even then, if you give those weapons and an O-line, a play caller, who's to say he doesn't put up crazy numbers too?
Right. I think the thing about Gino is because of obviously when he came into the league with the Jets and we just had the really disastrous couple of seasons there. Then he had all the injuries and he went like from team to team for those couple of years. I think maybe that's why the perception of Gino is that maybe he's not any good and that he just kind of latched on with a good team. But I mean, when he was given a chance to start again, 2022, he did a great job. And I mean, he's been performing every chance that he gets. I think he's a solid NFL quarterback. He just doesn't really get a whole lot of love.
Yeah, and he's a veteran too. I mean, there's something to be said for that. As valuable as it is to get a rookie quarterback who's good while he's still on a rookie deal, A, it's hard, and B, there's just so many growing pains you have to deal with. Even the really good ones. You know, look at Jaden Daniels. He just balled out on Monday Night Football, but he didn't throw a touchdown before Monday. Not to say the only metric for quarterbacks is throwing a touchdown, but you know, it takes some time. Anthony Richardson is a great talent that takes some time. Even CJ Stroud, I don't think he can move the ball in his first game as a rookie against the Ravens. And his last game was against the Ravens. He couldn't move the ball against them either, right? First game and last game, same result. Couldn't even score an offensive touchdown on the Ravens. Like it's tough with the rookies, even if they're good like CJ right away. It still takes time. CJ just looked like a deer in headlights against the Vikings last weekend. So the veterans who have seen every blitz look, every safety rotation, gone against coordinators multiple times, like that time on task matters too. If you're a team that's trying to win right away. Goff, very similar. He's a few years younger than Gino, but he's been in the league so long that all these coaches and coordinators can switch teams and everything, but there's Goff can be like, yeah, I saw this guy. He was from this tree. He runs these type of blitzes. It just helps. Not to say it guarantees that you perform well, but you got it. You got that memory bank of stuff. Gino has that too. There's a lot of, right now in the league, there's a lot of safety rotations. There's a lot of mugging the A-gaps on 3rd and 1,000,000 and dropping into these exotic coverages and stuff. And Gino used to go against Rex Ryan defenses. So there ain't no overload front or mugged up look that he ain't got to look at as a young guy. So that type of stuff is invaluable as well. That's another reason why I think that he could be a guy who takes you to the promised land if you build it around him, because the mind has to be there. You're going to go win road playoff games and stuff like that. You don't got time to be frazzled by no double A gap look that drops in the cover 4 or whatever. You got to be able to just sniff that out. And that takes time. Even the really good quarterbacks, that takes time. So he's been in the league for what it was like I said, about to turn 34. So yeah, I think he's really solid, man. If they build it right, he can get them where they need to be, I think.
Yeah, I think you brought up Goff. Their game's different, but it's similar. The experience takes you a long way, and just being able to calm a situation. We saw it in the playoffs last year with the Lions. Jared Goff, that was a huge moment, and he was able to weather that Daniel storm and to bring us some playoff wins. Gino was in the same boat. I think he can. He gets in that position with a good team. He can do it.
Yeah, I think this is Goff's second time or second franchise he's been on, and on both of them at different points he's had the best O-line in the league. Like this, it's not a coincidence. That I think it was a 2018 Rams team had the best line in the league, and then I think this year's Lions and last year's Lions. You can say last year's Eagles if you want, but like they're 1A and 1B for me. So either way, he's had a top 2 O-line twice, whereas I don't think Gino's ever had a top 10 O-line. So that matters as well. Gino and Goff have both had weapons to throw to. That part undeniable, but I think really up front, that's where the difference in their 2 careers really shows up for me as guys who had to switch franchises to maybe get a better look. Like, I think the O-line stuff it sticks out like a sore thumb to me. I don't care how good you are. If you don't got an O-line, you're going to be screwed eventually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more apparent for Goff that because he doesn't have the right. Gino, he doesn't, not that he likes to run, but he's a little obviously more mobile than Jared Goff. But yeah, if you give any quarterback time, they're going to tear it up. All right. Let's talk. We're talking about the talent surrounding Gino. Kenneth Walker, he's probably would be a big help if he's back. What's the latest news on him? And are you feeling that he's going to be back, or is it going to be another week off for him?
I have a new view of oblique injuries after watching Amon-Ra St. Brown on receiver. Because, I mean, oblique is tough, man. Like, you can play. It's one of those you can play through, but, oh, man, everything just probably feels like you're getting hit with a ton of bricks right in the midsection. So, that's what Ken's dealing with right now. I don't know if he'll play. They didn't put him on IR when he got hurt in week 1, thinking that, all right, maybe we could get him back. He practiced in like a limited capacity, I think last Friday, which is good news. So they're hoping he can play. If he can play, he's a game changer. I mean, people in Michigan know, like Ken's different. Ken it could be 1st and 10 at the 20. He could score. Like he's one of the few guys in the league, I think, who's got that home run capability at the running back spot, at any spot. But yeah, specifically at running back, him, Brees, Saquon, Derrick Henry. Like they're just some guys where, yeah, it's our first snap of the game, but we might score. And it's hard to replicate that. That's why DK is so valuable. It's just like, Gino threw an interception last week, 3rd and 15. Got returned to the 6. The Dolphins ended up kicking a field goal. Gino's next snap was a 71-yard touchdown. Like, sometimes you don't even need to. Quarterbacks want to get in a rhythm after throwing a pick. It was like, I don't need no rhythm. Just let me throw deep to DK. All right, we're right back off the field. Touchdown. Ken's like that. It's like, if you need your offense to get a jolt, just hand it to what's Ken number 9? Hand it to number 9, and he might just take it 65 yards to the crib. You don't even need to dial up nothing else. Those type of players are really hard to find. Gibbs is like that. I should add him to that list of just guys you can just take it to the house. So I don't know if he'll play, but if he plays, that really, I think, evens things up. Because I think the Seahawks probably, between the teams right now, both of them are dealing with a bazillion injuries. The first injury report that comes out is going to look, we were talking about this with Colton Pouncey on our Seahawks man-to-man pod. It's going to look like a Costco receipt when the injury report drops for both of these teams. But if Seahawks can get Ken, I think that will really help their cause, particularly if some of these guys on the Detroit defense, McNeil, and I know Davenport's already out. Any other guys who are questionable, Branch, if those guys are out and Ken's in, I think that's really helpful in the Seahawks' favor.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to see anybody injured, but yeah, if he's on the inactive list, I'll be a little more relieved. All right. Let's continue with the run game adjacent here. And you kind of touched on this a little bit ago. For a team that, Seattle, even with Pete Carroll, a team that wanted to run the ball, but they seem to fail to either draft offensive linemen high or pay offensive linemen. Do you think that's going to continue under McDonald, or why have they decided to go this route? It just seems like it's been an issue for a while with Seattle.
Yeah, I think it's just poor evaluation. For a long time, they've drafted a lot of linemen. They've signed a lot in the offseason, and it just hasn't worked out consistently. I think they've only signed one offensive lineman to a multi-year extension someone that they've drafted. I think that was Justin Britt in 2017. So it's just been a lot of bad picks, really. And in some cases, they've had some guys, so they picked them, and then they went to other teams and just sucked. Maybe that's just a bad player. Then they've had some other guys who have gone on to have fine careers. James Carpenter played in the league a long time after they took him in the first round of 2011. Mark Glowinski was, I think, a day 2 or 3 pick in 2015 or 16. He ended up playing a long time. I think with Indy for a little bit there. Ethan Posick was a guy they took in 2017 who didn't work out here and then was on a really good Browns O-line for a year or two. So it's just I think the evals were bad for a long time. I think playing with Russ is really hard for O-linemen. And that took a lot to adjusting to, especially with the tackles. Because there's just so much rhythm that goes with the quarterback and his tackles, how much depth he gets on his drops, where the rush lanes are, where you can scramble to. And Russ, everybody knows, you see the highlights. That dude was just doing triple axles in the backfield. That's hard on your line. And he was one of those quarterbacks who was really nice, but also had an area of the field that he wasn't super great at. It was the middle of the field. That's a big deal for your line. So I think it'll probably get a little better as they get to know Gino and what he's about and what he's good at. But still, you got to get guys who can just ultimately move guys off the ball. And they really struggled with that. I watching the tape of the Lions run game against the Cardinals this week and then watching the Seahawks run game against the Dolphins. It was just night and day. Lions just moving guys off the ball, man, whether it's with Gibbs, whether it's Montgomery, they're just moving them and they could just do whatever they wanted. And the Seahawks don't have that consistently. They can do it for a quarter or a half, but you want to be a great team. If you want to beat a really good team like the Lions, you got to be able to do that for 4 quarters, man. You have 2 or 3 quarters where you can't run the rock. Man, you better hope you got the 85 Bears on defense to hold it down until you figure it out.
Yeah. Next question. How do you think the Seahawks are going to attack the Lions defense?
Well, I think they need to try to get the run going early just to get Aiden off their back. He's killing it. And that's just, he's a monster, man.
Yeah.
I was telling Colton this too. I watched the film of all of Aiden's pass rush snaps in a chronological order because of how we can watch film now. And you can just see how long it takes each team to start double teaming him and chipping him. And it's amazing how long it takes some of these teams this year. I'm like, yo, I'd have did this off rip. The Bucs took way too long.
They did.
Right. They're just destroying Baker. And they were like, let's help him out. And I was like, man, I had done that after the first time he tried to take Baker's head off. So I think but the other way to avoid Aiden taking your quarterback's head off is to run the rock. You can run it at him, you can run it away from him, but I think at this point, teams need to start treating Aiden like the Saints treated Micah Parsons when they beat the brakes off the Cowboys. They were just running everything away from number 11. They were just like, no chance. Oh, and if we do drop back, play action, max protect, slide to 11 side, we're going to make sure he just can't get to Derek. And I don't think he did at all. So I think the Seahawks would probably treat that the same way. Like, yeah, they're going to get the ball to DK, throw deep balls, stuff to Jackson, Smith and Jigba, move the chain to Tyler Lockett. That's all fine. The main thing is making sure 97 doesn't wreck your game plan, right? Because everything sounds good until 97's in the backfield. It really is. And they know that. They dealt with that for years with someone like Aaron Donald. You can have this great plan, 99 wrecks it. Right? That's why these guys up front get paid so much, why they're drafted so high, and Aiden's looking like one of those guys. I don't know much about Aiden personally, but I can imagine that he probably wants a little bit of quote-unquote revenge. He did not play well last year against 2 backup tackles for the Seahawks, Stone Forsythe on the left, Jake Curran on the right. And they after a while, they just stopped even chipping, stopped giving tight end help and everything. They were like, oh, our guys can block 97. We're good. And we're able to put up points. I'm sure Aiden watched that tape. I'm sure he didn't like it. I don't know if he's been asked about it this week, but I'm sure he wants to prove that was a little fluky and that he can get after these guys. Who knows if he will, but the Seahawks, I'm very sure, will try to make sure that their game plan is not wrecked by 97, whether in the pass game or the run game, because if that happens, it's lights out.
I'm sure he wants another shot against Stone Forsythe. Aiden Hutchinson and Charles Cross, that's a really good matchup, though. They're probably going to try to move him over Stone. I'm sure they're not going to keep him over there on Charles too much.
Yeah, probably not. Although, I mean, if I was watching the tape of Aiden, I'd put him up there against Trent Williams, Larry Tunsil. I mean, he's got that spin move. He can. I don't know how long he's been working on that, but it looks really refined now. The spin that he's been showing. He's obviously had the athleticism and the power, but that's a nice counter that has just been looks like has been just kicking teams' ass early on this season.
And he's got some alterations and everything to it too. So
he always had that motor, but now he's adding these moves and just counter moves on top of it. It's been impressive. It's nice when you invest a high draft pick on someone and then they continue to get better and they don't just rely on what got him to be a high draft pick. And Aiden Hutchinson's been all that and more for us. Super happy with a guy like that. Besides Aiden, what concerns you about this Lions team? If you want to go on the offensive side of the ball, you can go that too.
Yeah, I mean, Branch would be the guy. I talked about him earlier. I'm a big fan of him. If he's not concussed, hopefully he's not. He can play. He would be the guy. I mean, McNeil has some good stuff too. From what I've seen, I know he's shoulder. I think Davenport. It sucks with the Lions. Davenport has given the Seahawks some issues because he's just so freaking strong. He really is.
Yeah.
Like Aiden's got the pass rush moves. Marcus doesn't need them. He just puts his arm on your tackle, and eventually your tackle hits the dirt. That's it. Pass rush move A, B, and C. He would have been a problem. I mean, it really sucks they're so banged up because this would have been some really good matchups. I guess what really, to flip it to the other side of the ball, like what really kind of concerns me is stopping Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, because the Seahawks are injured as well up front. Byron Murphy, the second, their first round pick, has a hamstring injury, and then Leonard Williams, their high priced defensive tackle, has a rib injury. Neither one of them finished the game against Miami. You're missing both of them. That's tough because the Seahawks are like a gap and a half, read and play the blocks up front type of team. They're not really a super penetrating front necessarily. So you need grown ass men in there in the middle, guys who are real good, particularly against what I think is the best line in the NFL. So that would be an issue. Because like I said, I watched the Arizona tape. I was like, yo, they're moving guys off the ball. The Arizona D-line is not great, but still, they did what they had to do to run the rock. I'm surprised they didn't score more points considering how well they was running it. But that's a legitimate concern. The Seahawks had some tackling issues on defense in last year's game at every level, backer in the backfield, and then their DBs as well. So this team tackles way better than that one. So it may not be as much of an issue, but who knows? They tackled real well in week 1 and then didn't in week 2. So week-to-week league, tackling Gibbs and Montgomery is going to be tough. And the switch and what type of tackling you need to do will be interesting. Like David might just run through your face, Gibbs might juke you, and if they're both in interchanging within drives, it's a nice 1-2 punch, man. It's hard to, you got to get in a different mode to tackle those guys. Gibbs is more your angles need to be right, and your pads got to be on tight. So those two are a problem. Best running back duo in the league to me.
Yeah, we be saying that too. All right, before we let you go, Mike, just tell us where people can reach out to you and check out your stuff.
Yeah, follow me on X, Twitter, whatever it's called now. At Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Pretty much everything I do is there in some capacity. The newest episode of the Seahawks Man to Man podcast is always pinned to the top of my profile. We're on Apple, we're on Blue Wire Pods, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. All of those links are always at the top of my they're pinned to the top. And then my author page for The Athletic is in my bio on Twitter. So if you want to, hey, what did Mike write? Bing, you don't even got to scroll. Hit the link in my bio and then you'll just pull up everything that I've done. So my Twitter is pretty much a one-stop shop for all things Mike.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. Awesome to talk to, man. You're very informative and just cool guy. So thanks for spending some time with us.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Enjoy the game.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed those interviews. It was great that Mike and Brandon spent time with us, and I hope we all learned something there. All right, Jacob, let's get into our keys to victory and the stats to be aware of. So let's start in the category of stats to be aware of. One thing that's going to be important was to keep pressure on Gino. I noticed that Seattle has allowed pressure quickly this season. Teams are able to get to Gino pretty quickly, and they average 2.19 seconds to get to Gino. So he doesn't have very much time to throw the ball. So I think that that's important to look at. We talk about Kenneth Walker. Is he going to play? We still don't know at this point, but he averages 5.2 yards per carry, whereas their backup, Zach Charbonnet, former Michigan running back, UCLA running back, 3.5 yards per carry. So it's almost 2 yards difference between the two. Either way, Lions run defense is stout. All righty. Let's get to your keys of victory. I'm going to have you start this one off.
All right. First key to victory that I have is to put the pressure on Gino and defend the pass. We know that their rush offense has been struggling, and our run defense has been outstanding. Obviously, as you just mentioned, we don't know if Kenneth Walker is going to play or not. He did play in the game last year, and our run defense did a really good job keeping him in check. He had 17 carries, 43 yards. Didn't really do much, but we did get kind of tore up last year by Gino. Obviously, we have a revamped secondary. This defense looks a lot better than it did last year, but we just really need to put more pressure on and make him uncomfortable. He's only had to scramble out on 2 plays this year. He has had some other runs that were kind of designed or maybe not pressured. He just had time and decided to take off. But 2 times has he been under pressure that he's had to actually take off and run away and get past the line of scrimmage. He may throw it away or kill the ball. He overall really has not been having to run very much. He's trusting his receivers. They've been able to move the ball. This is really going to be the Seahawks' first real test against us. They haven't played very strong opponents so far. They're going to come in ready. This is prime time. It's Monday Night Football. We owe it to the Seahawks to give them a snap back to reality and kind of crush their spirit and, win for the first time against the Seahawks since I believe it was 2012.
Yeah, it's been too long. Couple things I'll tell you that stats that are important about keeping pressure on Gino. So Gino has in the league right now the second highest completion percentage against man. The Lions play man the most in the league. So whether we're going to change that up or we have to be very careful about that. And another thing is you say, well, keep pressure on, let's blitz. Gino's passer rating against a blitz is 107. When he's not blitzed, it's 86.6. The blitz may not be the way to go. We'll see how the game goes. We have to get pressure with just our front four. However,
Exactly.
AJ dials that up. Without having Derek Barnes in there, that's going to be a little more of a challenge because Derek Barnes could either rush or pull back and someone else rushes in his place and be a little more difficult. Marcus Davenport not being on there certainly is going to make a difference. But Levi Onwuzurike, hopefully Aleem plays. DJ Reader's going to be in there. And obviously we have, ace in the hole. We got Hutch out there. So we just have to get rushed with our front four. That'll be key to the game.
Yeah, I think that Josh Pascal is probably going to get a lot more playing time to try to do what Davenport did, which is just, run this guy over. Like, that's how we're going to create this pressure. Don't get fancy with it. Right into his chest, push him back into the quarterback, drive as far as you can without letting the edge up. Obviously, like you said, Derek Barnes, that's huge to not have him as a threat to rush or drop back. We may have to, it's tough because you may have to be more vanilla with the defense. You can't disguise as many things if we're not going to be sending people. But at the same time, if you do that, then Gino's going to be able to pick you apart.
Hopefully Branch is back. That's another wild card back there with this concussion. We're going to need him in the back end. But, yeah, we just going to need to generate pressure with just 4. So however AJ dials that up. Yep. All right. I'll go next. Kind of similar. I had, keep pressure on Gino, but also, let's not let DK get us on explosive plays. Keep him in front of us. And, we can't let him get a 71-yard touchdown like Miami. That's a backbreaker right there. He's a big guy. He's going to be able to box you out. He's going to get his catches, but we just need to keep him in front of us, keep the yak down, and don't allow him to get big explosives.
For sure. I mean, they've got a solid set of receivers, so it's going to be interesting to see how we match up if, Carlton Davis follows DK around, or if we kind of let DK line up wherever he lays, and whether that be Terrion or Branch, CD. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how we play that. We've got the players now to hopefully hang with him. We don't have Cam Sutton having to follow him around.
No, that's fine. So just a little bit on DK. He's had 17 receptions this year for 262 with 2 touchdowns. His average air yards per target is 12.5. So he gets the ball down the field. So we just have to be ready for that.
For sure.
All right, Jacob. Got any more keys to victory?
Next one I have. So their pass defense is top of the league, top notch. Their run defense has really kind of been average. We need to run the ball. That's a huge key to victory. I think that this game probably needs to look a lot like it did last week. We've got the running backs. We can soften them up. You know, if they do decide that they're going to stack the box, if they're going to keep everybody inside and really play the run, then we can try to hit Amon-Ra or J-Mo on some quick plays, get the ball outside, make them have to think about it just to soften that up again, just to keep chugging along, keep it with the run first. I mean, I really think when you do that, there's going to be at least an opportunity or two for J-Mo to sneak one out and get a deep ball. I mean, they're not going to be ready for it if we're running all game. If we do try to do that early on, I think, you know, it may not be the smartest game plan to try to test these guys right away, you know, by throwing too far deep. I think the key is going to have to be to run first.
Yep, I think it's run, play action pass, pull up their linebackers, free up that middle of the field. And if, you know, we got a special shot to J-Mo, you take your chance when you can hit that. J-Mo's the one that could take the top off any defense. We have that in our back pocket whenever we decide to unleash that. Last week was not the week for J-Mo. And just like Amon-Ra the first week, J-Mo didn't have a very good statistical line last week. I think just 1 reception, 9 yards. You know, Amon-Ra had a very, 13 yards the first week. That's the way this offense is going to go. It's going to be someone's week and someone's going to have to take a week off depending on how they go. I'm with you. We're going to have to run the ball. You heard both Mike and Brandon, both were scared about our run game. The only other key to victory that I have is the injuries. Next man up. Hopefully Anzalone's back. Otherwise, Malcolm Rodriguez and Jack Campbell are really going to have to shoulder the load. We'll have Jalen Reeves-Maven in there. Neiman will be called up. Maybe Trevor Nowatzki. If Alex can't go, maybe he, becomes active this week. Yeah, we're just going to need the next man up, and hopefully Branch can go. We haven't seen Iffy. Maybe he hasn't practiced yet this year, but if Branch can't go, hopefully Iffy can make it.
Man, that would be huge if he could. I mean, if Branch can't play and Iffy's out, then you're looking at probably Brandon Joseph trying to slot in that role, or you have Lauren Strickland. I don't know. I mean, just definitely not as dynamic of defenders. It's going to be different.
I mean, outside Aiden, you're arguably taking, if Branch isn't out there, he's probably our second best defender out there. Yes. Dynamic defender.
He's having a great year.
Alex is up there too, but he could be out. So, I mean, defense we don't know how it's going to look, but hopefully giving them an extra day, especially Branch with his concussion, being this on Monday night, he might have a better shot of coming back. But all right, now that we've let you know how we're going to win our keys of victory, let's move on to Grit Picks.
Grit Picks.
All right, first let's review last week. Both Jacob and I took the Jets. Jets won. Sunday Night Football. Jacob admitted to me that he fell asleep. Old man Jacob over here. I was up. Unfortunately, my Falcons went for it on 4th down. I picked the Falcons, went for it on 4th down, and couldn't get in the end zone. So Jacob got me on the Chiefs. We both picked the Bills, who just wiped the floor with the Jaguars, and then we didn't see Jaden Daniels' breakout party coming. So we both picked the Bengals, and we're wrong on that. It was that was
cool to see though.
Fun game.
It was a fun game. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was going to say. It was a fun game to watch. It was those offensive, battles going back and forth. All right. Thursday Night Football. Cowboys at Giants. Who you got in this one?
I've got the Cowboys beating the Giants, even though it's in the Giants stadium. I still got the Cowboys beating them.
I waffled on this, man, going back and forth. I'm going to go with the Giants, though.
Oh, okay.
I see Devin Singletary running on Cowboys' league worst rushing defense. So I'm licking my chaps on a couple
Motor
weeks.
Singletary, you think he's gonna?
Hey, Cowboys'
Right?
rush defense has been terrible. I'm really excited to see what the Lions do to this if this rush defense is as bad.
Right.
They're
Hey,
32nd ranked. Cowboys are 32nd ranked against the rush right now.
they need to wake up soon.
Yeah. All right. Bills again on a primetime game. It's a very good one on Sunday Night Football. This could be
For
really
sure.
good. Bills at Ravens. What you feeling on this one?
You're first this time.
I'm first. I'm going Ravens. I think they're gonna get another one in the win column here.
I actually went the same way. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. But I think the Ravens, they're at home, prime time. They've not came out on the positive end of most of these games so far. I think they're going to have to dig deep, like the Cowboys, really. It's early on, but the season's already not going the way you want it to. You're going to have to really fight it out here. I think they're going to get it done.
Yep. All right. And then there's 2 Monday night games again this week. I don't really like that they do 2 Monday night games.
I don't either. You can't watch them both at the same time. Like, what's the purpose of the prime time?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know why they do that. So obviously Seahawks at Detroit's one of them. We're not going to pick that. We've already discussed that we don't pick Detroit games. But the Monday Night Football, the other one is Titans at Dolphins. Dolphins, might have Huntley as their quarterback. Already moving on from Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson. So what you thinking on this one?
Yeah, this one was kind of tough for me to pick because I feel like the Dolphins have the upper hand. But if they were to start Skylar Thompson again after what we saw last week, I don't think that they're going to be able to get it done. But, I mean, they might start Huntley. We don't know exactly what's going on yet. I'm still going to say the Dolphins. I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win. This one was a real 50-50 toss-up for me. But, yeah, I'm not going to feel that bad about, missing this one to watch the Lions game.
All right. I'm going to pick the Titans. So I would like you to get, I want you to save JJ's tears for me after the Dolphins lose on this.
I'll tell him you said that so he can message you if they do win.
Well, he could have my tears. He kicked my butt. JJ kicked my butt in fantasy football last week, so he can have my tears for that.
I think Preston beat me, right? Or was that Bradley?
Mm-hmm.
One of them. Yeah.
You lost Preston, I think so.
Yeah. Well,
I know
and
the kids are showing.
So then Bradley, that's in first place right now.
Bradley is 3-0 right now. Yeah. He mentioned that casually to me the other day. He's like, I'm the only 3-0 team in this league.
Glad he's having fun.
Yeah. Bradley's, by the way, Bradley's name of his fantasy football team is Amon-Ra is my sunshine, which I think is hilarious. So, all right, let's go on to the Grit Guarantee.
It's time for the Grit Guarantee.
I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. My Grit Guarantee, I'm going bold again. It worked out last week with the 100% red zone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that we are going to score either a defensive or special teams touchdown this game.
Ooh. Wow.
That's really bold, but you know what? I think we're due for one. Maybe it'll come late in the game and it'll just be a crushing blow. But that's my guarantee is that either defensive or special teams touchdown will be scored by us.
So safety count in there? If they get a safety, you going to count that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I will count that.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah, because Dolphins almost got Gino for a safety. That's when he threw that pick last week.
Well, Jack Fox is pinning them deep, so maybe we'll...
That's a good thought. Mine, I'm actually going to pick the Lions. They're going to give the Seahawks the first loss of the year, and to do that, Kirby Joseph's going to get another interception. He's going to hit it again. So I don't know. I'm not going to say it's going to be in the end zone, but maybe that's the one he scores on your defensive touchdown. But I'm saying,
right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Kirby's going to get another one. They're going to try to test him again, and he's going to be out there playing center field. So
I love it.
Yeah. So all right, man. Another good Pride preview. We had 2 good interviews again. We're getting lucky with that. That's awesome.
Right. It's been very cool. Like hearing the other side and what they think of our team and everything. So
yeah, and I like to hear
cool.
like the Gino Smith stuff was very interesting to hear what they think about Gino Smith. I think the comparison that we've talked about to Jared Goff is very interesting. Just like the outside view and the inside view are a lot different. as far as your quarterback. So yeah, it's great guys.
That's
Both
good.
Brandon and Mike were great, and so wish them well, but not on Monday night.
No.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna head out of here. Got a primetime game. See those black jerseys? We're all excited about it. So let's go Lions.